This is the Art and Business of Writing podcast. Barbara Gustavson, owner of Discover Next Step, is an executive coach and a consultant who turned her passion into her profession. She let go of fear that was holding her back and discovered that the right mindset, resilience, and a plan, we can push past any barrier and create the life we want. She works with professionals who are passionate about learning and making a difference and helps them get control of their priorities, manage their energy, and get connected to the purpose so they can be more effective in life and business. She and her husband live in Virginia with their 2 sons and love to kayak, hike, and read. Barbara, welcome to the show.
Oh, Chris, thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you on. So tell us a little bit more about what you do.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I used to be a government contractor, and I found myself one year my whole life took a U-turn. I started homeschooling my son who was struggling in school. And during that time, I had a chance to reflect and I didn't go back to my job. And strangely, I didn't know what I wanted to go to, but I just knew that I was headed in a different direction. And several years later, I ended up going through a personal development program. They had a coaching lane. I absolutely loved it. And I just am amazed at what people can do when they just have someone come alongside them to not just cheer them on, but to really challenge them to grow. So that's how I ended up coaching.
Now, what do you love about coaching?
You know, Chris, what I think I love most about coaching is when someone realizes that they have a strength that they never knew they had. They may have taken some assessments and they may have had some idea, but when they really began to explore deep inside them, they realized they had so much more inside them that they realized, and maybe they had just settled for less than what they thought they had or what someone had told them. So I love, seeing that passion ignited inside of them. So that's my favorite part of being a coach.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love coaches. Just from the time I was a child playing, sports, I've had a coach, and then I had a business for a while and I had a coach for that. And it's just the importance of having a coach can't be really overstated. What can a coach do that, I can't do for myself?
Well, the way I would describe that is think about your business. You know what you want. And lots of times when we're going after goals or we, have a ultimate goal that we want, often when we're really close to our own situation, we can't be as objective. There's a saying, when you're in, the frame, you can't really see the picture. And so what a coach does is they come from a more objective point of view. They're able to shine a light on some of those blind spots that we don't always see, but also help us to find the answers for ourselves. A coach, an effective coach, really goes by their client's agenda, not what they think they should be doing, but really helping the client dig inside them, get connected to their purpose and their mission, and also create an effective plan on getting there.
Now, something that I know that excites you is goal setting.
Yes.
With 2016 approaching, when should I start thinking about my goals for next year?
I believe that any kind of goal setting should be now, this very moment. So as soon as something comes into your awareness, I'm a firm believer you need to capture your ideas before they slip through your fingers. And so I keep a journal of my ideas, and I do plan a time when I go through my goals. I actually go through my goals every week just to make sure I'm staying on track, but I do tend to, around November timeframe, begin looking at the year ahead, but I touch base during the year.
Why is it important to have goals?
Well, most people, they want to improve in their lives, whether their business, their personal lives, and goals are a way to help us do that. Otherwise, they are just ideas in their head and they don't manifest. So we need to create concrete goals and deadlines to make sure that we're staying on track.
Around this time of year, of course, as we're setting these goals, the word resolution pops up. What
Mm.
makes a goal different than a resolution?
I think our goals can be a specific decision or act, and it can be part of a resolution. But when you think of resolution, by definition, it's really a firm decision to do or not to do something. It's the act of solving a problem. And when you think about a goal, you're deciding to do something. You're deciding to act, to solve a solution. And resolution, I think, in our society has become more of a declaration saying what we're going to do. And so the action is almost taken out. And I think often with tradition, we leave out an element of our uniqueness and taking action. And so I think goals are so much more powerful than just making a traditional resolution.
So you talked about just putting action behind that goal. Like, what's the most effective way to do that?
In my experience, the most effective way to put a goal into action is to get really connected on why I'm doing that goal, what my purpose is, if it's aligned with that, is it benefiting others? And also, an important element is how do I want to feel when I reach that goal? Because often we do it backwards. We see things that we want to, achieve, and then we go after it, and we're hoping to feel a certain way. And often we do, when we get that goal, but often we're, wanting to go to the very next best thing. So if we kind of do that backwards, if we decide how I want to feel in the first place, then we can align our goals with that.
That's important, like the whole how I want to feel. Because then that, I guess that makes the goal very personal for me.
Absolutely, because then you're living, from your core values, your true self. And I think that's just a very important element, but a missing piece to a lot of goal setting.
I know Tony Robbins talks a lot about attaching an emotion to something to make sure that it's something that you really, really want. Like, what's your thought about that?
I absolutely believe that. I think we need to get an emotional charge from that. And if we set a goal and we don't have an emotional charge, let's say we want to lose weight, um, we do have reasons why we want to do that. But if we are getting that sinking feeling about the process, we need to dig deeper and find out, why is it important to us? And it may not just be about the numbers. It might be about, wanting to be your very best for your family, wanting to be your best for your children, or, to be there for your grandchildren. So make sure that any goal that you set, you are getting an emotional charge out of it, because that's going to really propel you and push you forward and give you fuel in the times when you're not feeling so motivated.
Yeah, I've definitely been there before. Where I've set goals. I'm like, I want to do this. It's got to go down. And then you realize that the goals just have no power because either the goal is something that maybe somebody else has kind of put into you or suggested to you, or it's just a goal that's kind of hollow, but it sounds cool, but it doesn't really ring true. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, Chris. It really does.
How do I know when a goal is truly like something that I want out of life? Like, what are the characteristics that I'm going to display when it's something that I really, really am passionate about?
Yes, well, I think it's important to take time to evaluate what you really want. What is it that you desire? And you mentioned about other people's goals for you. Really decide, is this something you want? Or is this something that someone has influenced you, and really connect it with your core values? So that's a process of going deep and finding out what's important to you. And you can ask yourself questions, simple questions like, what makes my heart sing? Or, what do I cry about? What really bothers me, in society? And lots of times, simple questions like that can really get you connected to your core values, and you can begin to really develop your goals around that.
Now, let's say I set a goal, Barb, of hypothetically, like I want to write a book. Okay, how do
Yes.
how do I frame out my action steps to make sure that I get there? Like, do I need to create an end date for that and then work backwards? Like, how do you recommend that I ensure that I get there by having the proper steps in place?
Yes, I do recommend getting an end date. And I'll be totally transparent with you. This is the part that I've struggled with the most, is setting a deadline. And it's not that it's hard to set a deadline, but often we think that deadline has to be in stone. And so I had a fear of not getting the right date. I know it sounds crazy, but I've discovered that other people, they have fear of not getting things just right, which is a sign of perfectionism. But what I found is go ahead and put the date that you feel that you could reasonably reach that and pushing yourself. And it's okay if that date has to change, but it's important for you to get that date. And then what I do is I work backwards. There's, many goals to reach that end goal. And I'm sure you realize that with writing a book. And I think I've, seen and heard you say, I write every day, even if it's just 10 minutes. I've built something into my calendar, into habits. That way, if you take that approach, it doesn't seem so daunting. So I think it is important to set dates and realize those dates that you put in the calendar, that's, one of the most important dates, to set for yourself because it's investing in yourself.
Ooh, I love that, investing in yourself. Ah, that gets me excited. How often do I need to look at these goals?
I recommend looking at them at least monthly, if not weekly. I have a daily planner. It's called a passion planner. It's really awesome because I like to do a lot of mind mapping when it comes to goal setting. But that way, when you look at your goals weekly, you can make adjustments along the way because I don't know about you, I'll go off and I'll set a goal, but I'll realize sometimes I'm not going about it the right way and I need to make adjustments. And the quickest way to do that is to review your goals, at least weekly so that the adjustments can be more minor instead of looking, 3 months down the road and realize, hey, I need to make a really big change.
Okay. When I have my goals in place and, I'm looking at them all the time and I'm kind of acting upon them, who should I show my goals to? Like, should I be protective of my goals or should I share them with family and friends or a coworker? Like, who?
Yeah. I don't recommend announcing it on Facebook. I've done that before. And what I have found is when I put a goal out there, you'll get all kinds of opinions. And believe it or not, there'll be discouraging comments. And it's important to really share your goals with people, who you trust and people who have also, been down the same road, who have worked hard. They know what it takes to reach a goal. So people who like, and trust that will, stretch you and that they will hold you accountable and believe in you too.
Now, let me ask you a question, and maybe you know the answer, maybe you don't, or maybe you've experienced it, or maybe you haven't. Do you find that there's value to a degree in social accountability? Like, I'm on several Twitter groups and Facebook groups, and so we're all just kind of sharing things that we're doing and motivational things. And each time I participate in these groups, or each time I share some sort of snapshot of where I am progressing towards my goals, I get energized by the feedback. Like, do you feel like social accountability does help?
In that situation, absolutely, because it sounds like you're connected to a group who is like-minded. They are also wanting to grow. They're, willing to get out of their comfort zone. So they encourage other people to. So absolutely.
How important is having just general accountability in terms of reaching my goals? Like, say I've got that trusted friend you mentioned before, that mentor, and I say, okay, here are my goals for 2016. I want you to hold me accountable. Maybe you ask me once a week or once a month or once a quarter how I'm doing. Like, how important should that be to me to make that happen?
I think it's the most important part of the execution process on any goal. It's important to, have clarity. It's important to have a plan, but the execution part is where most people get tripped up or they lack execution, and accountability is the quickest way to get you going. Not that you won't make progress, steps on your own, but you'll make quicker progress with someone and you'll grow even further and you'll see opportunities that otherwise you wouldn't see if you did it on your own.
Yeah, I heard a great story one time, Barb, where I was talking to a guy named Michael Savage. He's one of coach. He's a coach as well, and he said that he was struggling to get in the gym, and he had made it a goal. He's like, I've got to get in the gym. I've got to get in the gym. So what he did was he gave his trainer $1,000 check, and he said, if I miss one time, you cash that check. And
That's great.
he said, I did not miss one gym appointment.
That is great. I love it.
Yeah, now that's some high level accountability there.
It is.
Barb, you're a coach. How do you recommend that we approach a coach for mentoring? Like, I realized, okay, I've got this big goal that I want to achieve this year. I want to do something phenomenal with my life. but I know that it's something that's outside of me. I need help. How do I approach a coach?
Yeah, I think it's important to, first of all, know what you can expect from anyone you coach with. And there's different kinds of experiences out there. There's mentoring, which is sharing experience. There's consulting, which is sharing advice, teaching, sharing knowledge, training, sharing skills. And there's coaching that's sharing transformation and accountability. And all these experiences are great. And it's important to know what you're really seeking out of that experience. Are you wanting someone to just give you answers, or are you wanting someone to help, draw things out of you that you didn't see? So I would be really clear on what you're wanting out of that experience, and know that, each coach has a different niche. I was very naive when I went into the coaching business thinking I could help everyone. And not only is that arrogant, but it's not realistic, because I have strengths, that others don't have, and I have weaknesses and other people have strengths. So it's really important that you get connected with someone who has either the experience or expertise, or even the personality that will draw certain things out of you.
That's something I want to know as well. Like, what are some of the qualities that I should look for in a coach? I'm researching the internet. I mean, there's so many people who are coaches or say they're coaches. What are those qualities that I need to look for to ensure that I'm being coached by the right person?
Yes, a colleague, Stefan Seifert, he's an amazing marketing coach. He once said that a really effective coach is not going to have all the right answers, but they're going to ask the right questions. So it's someone that's going to draw you to your perspective and your truth. Someone that is going to, as a coach, they're going to let the client set the agenda, and they're going to create a non-judgmental space for you to connect your ideas and have your breakthroughs. And what I recommend people doing, and there's, like you said, there's so many different coaches. And as you know, I'm a John Maxwell certified coach, and you can look up on the internet and you can go to his site and see that there's so many coaches, even in your area. I think there's well over 6,000 trainers and coaches from around the world, and many of them can do consultation. So you can meet with them just for a short time, either face to face or virtually, which is amazing these days. But you can get an idea very quickly if both of you are the right match for each other. And you can ask them questions, things like, what can I expect from you as a coach if I were to work with you? And what do you expect from me as a client as we work together? And what kind of results have you had, with your clients as a result from working from you? And ask about their strengths and their niche, and even how they're going to hold you accountable. So there's questions that you can ask them, and you can know pretty much, pretty soon if you're going to be, a good match. And most of them have coaching packages, for as little as 1 month, some longer. But there's so many different options out there.
Ooh. Now, I love what you said there, just that a coach draws it out of you, that they're non-judgmental, they're like a safe place, and that they really care more, or they should care more about your success than their own success, essentially.
Absolutely. The way I look at it is, I'm coming alongside someone. They're doing the hard work. I'm there to encourage them, to cheer them on, to stretch them, and to grow them. But I know ultimately their results is an effort on their part. They're the ones who were committed to the process, that stayed focused. So I'm really honored and privileged to work alongside people that are already motivated.
Now, as I go through my year and I start to get momentum by just snatching those little victories up of just hitting my goals, like, how do you encourage celebrating wins? Because I think it's very important to do, and it's a big part of a lot of people's mantras is that you just celebrate your wins. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I think it is so important to celebrate wins. And in fact, every effort that someone makes, I think, needs to be celebrated. I think it needs to be celebrated even when you get the idea. And I one of the things that I recommend my clients doing is keep a list of your wins, so you can celebrate. And it's really great evidence that you can see, especially, when you don't see your progress, and you can just whip that out and say, hey, I am making progress.
There's a story of Don Shula, the great Miami Dolphins coach, and he said he would give his team, 24 hours to celebrate all their wins, and it was back to work.
That's a really great point, and I do have to agree, whether it's a 24-hour rule or 12-hour, because there have been so many people that have had great successes, and then they stopped because they were stuck in the celebrating. They were so excited about their achievement, they thought they had fully arrived, and it didn't go any further. And it's sad, but sometimes celebrating, too long can get us off track and disrupt the momentum that we have and all the hard work that we've put into something. So it's important to celebrate, but also remind ourselves, of the progress we're making. That's where the growth happens, not just in achieving our goal.
Something I've gotten in the habit of doing, which has really been like largely helpful to me, Barb, is I keep a journal every day of, not really a journal per se, but I list out the day of the week and then, that date. And then every day before I go to bed, I write down just one win from that day. It doesn't have to be big. If it's just, hey, I shot out an email blast to promote, my book, or I, finished editing a tough podcast, whatever it is. But it's cool to look back over the course of a month to see all the things that I consider small victories and how they've added up to a bigger win at the end of the month. You know what I mean?
I do. And what's really powerful about what you're doing, Chris, is often it is so much easier to think about at the end of the day what we didn't do or where we fell short. And often that creates negative thought patterns in our minds. And when you counteract that with what I did right, what my wins for the day, you're creating a stronger neural pathway to create more successful, behaviors and healthier habits in the long run. So I love that.
Oh, thanks so much. Now, let's talk about the other side of that, because it does happen that we fall short of our goals or things don't go the way we plan them to be. Like, what happens if I don't, if I miss the mark? Like, how do I recover?
Wow. Yeah. And I think so many entrepreneurs can relate to that. Anyone in life can relate to that because, we have these goals and we're trucking along, we're doing great. And then bam, we either hit a brick wall or we have this setback or, life happens and it just comes out of nowhere. And it can be very, discouraging. And sometimes we feel really stuck and it's often hard to get back on track. And so some people consider that failure. I often see it as, whatever you call it, I see it as a temporary setback, but also an opportunity to stop and take a look around and see if you're going in the right direction, to see if you need to shift anywhere. And to give you an example, and I'll just be transparent here, a couple months ago, I had a setback in my business, and that's not something entrepreneurs like to share about. But it was, a circumstance in my family, and I had to divert my attention to something else, and I wasn't able to work a while. And it was really discouraging. And I'm thinking, okay, how can I recover from this? But I'll be honest, with you, Chris, it was probably one of the best things that happened to my business because I was able to really take a look at what I had done in the, past 6 months. And although it was really great stuff, I wasn't really satisfied with the direction it was taking. And I was able to make some changes in that. And I had to adjust my schedule and, change my routine. But I am super excited about the changes I see. So it really depends on how you see things. And if you think about a missile and the software that, runs behind it, when you have a clear target, that missile is going to course correct, but it has to go through a series of mistakes to get back on track. And if you can look at mistakes and failure that way, and see it as, an experiment, and if you're clear on where you're going to get back on track. It may not be how you plan on it going, but you will get on track.
Now, something that happens from time to time with someone's goal is that it no longer aligns anymore. You have a goal and you thought, wow, this is what I really want to do with my life. But then you kind of go down the path and you discover, hey, this isn't what I really want to do. But then you have people saying, oh, well, don't quit. You just never know. You don't quit. But when is it important to just let go and just say, hey, you know what? This isn't what I want. It's time to correct course.
Wow. That's a really great thought because I think that does happen. And when it does, it can sometimes be a big blow, especially if you have spent many years or your whole life working towards that. I think there's times in life where our experiences or circumstances can change us and can really begin to shift our direction. And sometimes we fight that. We want to stay on course, we want to stay in the same direction. Often, I think there's a point where we create more resistance by trying to go into the same direction. We end up spinning our wheels. And so I think it's important for times to really step back and evaluate and seek guidance, whether it's from a coach, a mentor, or someone in your life who has gone through a similar experience, and find out what they've done, to dig deeper. And I think what people sometimes expect or want to see is they want to see the whole picture, their big dream at the same time. But what I found is it often comes in pieces, kind of like pieces in a puzzle. And so the ideas you have or the dreams you have, often they connect and weave together. So I think it's really often taking a step back and seeing what fits, but also taking a step forward from what you do see. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it does. Like, how do I learn to be reflective in situations like that? Like, okay, I've realized that I'm no longer going to, for me, like, I was a graphic designer for a number of years. And I realized over time, it just was incongruent with who I was. Like, I can use graphic design, but it wasn't the thing that I really wanted in my life. It wasn't what I was passionate about. I was more passionate about writing. And so I had to sit down and basically write all that stuff out. This is why I don't feel like I'm a graphic designer. This is why I feel like I'm a writer. This is why I want to be a writer. And I had to really kind of wrestle in my mind with all of that stuff. Because, the American way is like, well, quitters never win. No one ever quits. We don't quit. We dig deep, we press in, and we push forward. But sometimes it's okay. I think it's okay to quit. Like, when you feel like, this isn't who I am anymore. Like, what's the process that you would put me through if I came to you and said, hey, Barb, this is where I was. Here's where I want to be. I'm just stuck in this mindset that I should be doing something that I don't want to do, like we kind of talked about.
Absolutely. And thanks for sharing that. Yeah. I also believe there's times where we do need to quit, when we're not being, like you said, congruent or aligned with who we are. And Maxwell has a wonderful book called Put Your Dream to the Test. And he talks about, our congruency. Do we have, clarity on what our dream is? Is it a dream that will benefit others? Is it my dream or someone else's dream? And he takes you through a series of questions. So I think getting really clear on who you are and, what things really give you passion in life that you've done in the past, and really, what gives you that emotional charge. We were talking about that for our goals, but we can use that with our dreams too. And, what are the things that we've done that it felt like time was standing still, that it didn't feel, like work. And I love that LP Jack's quote, and I can't quote it verbatim, but it's, what do you love doing so much that while you do it, you feel like you're playing and not working?
Ooh, I love
And
that.
combine that.
I
Yes.
love that.
Yeah.
How do I get out of the shadow of someone else's dream for me? Because you kind of touched a little bit on the whole idea of being in someone else's dream. I about a year and a half ago, I met a farmer. He's an organic farmer. He was UVA educated. Went to had a pre-med and seminary degrees. And after he graduated, he told his dad. He said, "Hey, Dad, you know what? I think I just want to be a farmer." And he said his dad hit the fan.
Yeah.
But he stayed the course. He said, "I'm going to do this. I'm going to be a farmer." And he's a very successful farmer now. But I know a lot of people who struggle with that, who say, hey, this is what I really want to be in life, but they've invested all this, like you said, this time and energy, and they don't want to disappoint people. How do I get out of that cycle of not wanting to disappoint people and actually pursuing my true self?
Well, the sad truth is we're not always going to get support from people that we, have loved us. Lots of times we do, but often those who have supported us in the past, when they see our growth, they may be a little bit uncomfortable with it. Because they have to adapt to our new ideas and the changes that we've decided to go through. So just realizing that not everyone is going to support us, and asking yourself, do I want this bad enough? Am I willing to fail for living this dream? And am I willing to move on to different relationships that are more supportive. Because, if you think about a train, you have this car in your train and you have people on it, and the people you love and your friends. And sometimes we decide to get off on the next station, and we can't always expect everyone in that train with us to get off too. Sometimes they're meant to go on a different path, and they may not understand where we're going, and they may, fight us. But I tell people to follow their heart. We tend to get in our heads so much. We tend to think only logically, what makes sense, and are people in agreement with me? So often it requires us to go against the norm, and it sounds productive, but following our heart will never steer us wrong.
Now, we'd all know, like just with goal setting, that it takes a lot of momentum in the beginning. It takes a lot of incentives for us to get going, a lot of oomph. Now,
Yes.
how do I stay enthusiastic about my goals when I'm deep in the trenches and it just gets really hard?
Well, first of all, realize that we will never always be enthusiastic when we're going after the goal. There's times where we are and we're really pumped up, but there's times where we're just not going to feel like it, or we'll lose motivation in the process. And just know that reaching goals is a process. It can take months and years to reach some goals. It's not overnight. Just ask any athlete out there, and they have to be willing to experience the setbacks and loss of momentum, in order to improve. And the biggest thing that helped me when I've been less than enthusiastic about my goals is to really detach myself from that goal once I've set it. And I know it sounds crazy, but I become more attached to growing. So I become less goal oriented and more growth oriented. So instead of thinking that tangible goal as a standalone thing to achieve, I start focusing on who I'm becoming in order to achieve that goal. And so when I'm able to do that, I become more inspired. It gives me the fuel to get through, those tough days when I don't have momentum.
How do I have grace on myself when it comes to goals? A lot of times we want to get these goals written down and we're like, we're going to do this. It's going to be awesome. And we think we have this kind of mentality that it's going to happen really fast. And then as time goes on, we see, man, this goal is kind of stretching out longer than I thought it was going to be. How do I be patient through the process so that I don't give up? Because I know a lot of times people give up not because the goal is too hard to achieve, but they become impatient with chasing the goal because they had in their mind that it was just going to happen so soon.
Yes. I think it's very important to give ourselves the grace card and show self-compassion when we feel like we're coming up short. And often, if you look at it, we're not really coming up short. In some areas, we just have placed such high expectation and we don't allow for wiggle room or margin or life to happen. But just to really show ourselves compassion, be gentle with ourselves, because we're all on a journey. And it's not just about goal achieving, but it's really enjoying the journey and the process, and allowing ourselves to learn those lessons along the way. Because if we're so goal oriented and so set on that deadline, we're going to miss out on opportunities, and connections that we have with other people. We're going to walk right by, tools or resources that we could have learned to use. And so if we allow ourselves, in those moments when we're discouraged, or we have to change a deadline, or we have to change, our strategy, if we just realize that those are hidden opportunities, and, it'll create options in the long run. So I think it's a lot of how you look at it.
Yeah, I heard heard Darren Hardy say something a couple of weeks ago. I was listening to a podcast. He said, I'm always the tortoise in the race.
I love that.
Yeah, just because the tortoise wins, slow and steady. He gets there,
That is true. Yes, absolutely.
All right, I'm going to bring you in for a landing now. You've, offered so many great insights and wisdom. So I want to bring you in for a landing just to ask you a few, personal questions, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
All right. What is your favorite motivational or personal development book?
Ooh, that's a loaded question because I have so many, but I'm going to pick one. The one that really jumps out at me is Today Matters. And I didn't pick it just because it's a Maxwell book, and obviously I'm a Maxwell fan, but it really came at a time in my life where I was really struggling to find meaning in it. And it took me through so many areas of my life, 12 different areas where I can really get connected and finding meaning to it and making each day, a masterpiece and being really intentional about everything I do. So that's the one that has made the biggest impact on me.
I love Today Matters. It's one of my favorite Maxwell books too.
Oh, yeah, that's great.
What apps do you use for goal setting or for just your own mental organization?
Evernote. I probably use Evernote, and I use the free version. I don't know if premium is better. I use Evernote for so many things because it connects to all my other, my computer, my iPad, my phone. But I'm able to put a brain dump. Like if I come up with an idea, I have a tab for it's called my brain. And I just list that idea and I go back and sort it later into the folder that I want. And I'm a quote junkie. So whenever I see a great quote, I have my quotes file. And I just have so many folders. So it's really helped me I tend to be very forgetful. So it helps me to remember things in a simplified way. So I encourage people just to have simple strategies, simple systems to help you. We don't need fancy, tools or anything, but I find Evernote is my favorite.
What's your favorite inspirational quote right now?
Right now, the one that comes up often is a Mark Twain quote. Maybe you've heard it. The two most important days in your life are the day that you're born and the day you find out why.
Ooh,
Don't you love
yes,
it?
I do love that one. What's the best advice you've ever received with regards to growth?
Allow yourself to make mistakes because life can get messy. And I tend to be a perfectionist. And one time I intentionally took a pottery class because I knew it would be messy. And I had such growth during that time because at first I thought I was going to be able to make this beautiful, pot, but I had wet clay flying, in my hair, on my clothes, and it was really frustrating. I wanted to quit. But just to realize the learning process can be so powerful when you allow yourself to make mistakes.
Okay, so if there's one thing in the world that you could do knowing that you could not fail, what would that thing be?
I would be speaking to people, thousands of people, that there is more to life than what they've ever expected. And they could go, once they've accepted any kind of challenge that they faced in life, it's going to get them to the other side and they're going to experience so much growth.
Ooh, that's nice. I was kind of expecting like figure skater or.
Although that would be fun.
Great. Barb, thanks for joining me today. Can you please, tell our audience how they can get a hold of you?
Absolutely. You can go to my website, which is discovernextstep.com, or you can email me at barbara@discovernextstep.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Barbara, for talking goals. It's going to be a great 2016.
Oh, thank you for having me, Chris. This has been so much fun.
Wow, what an inspiring episode. If you weren't able to take notes, I've got you covered. Visit my website at www.chrisjonesinc.com/podcast to get today's show notes, as well as access other episodes you may have missed. Be sure to subscribe and rate the podcast on iTunes. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time.